What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tech 1-2 podcast. I'm super excited today to have somebody who's normally on the other side of the camera today. We have Martin, our videographer, here to share his experiences with social payment platforms and what you can do to protect your accounts as well. So let's get started.
On. How meta can you get?
Ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
You sure?
Yes. I'm good to go.
Shots are good?
Shots are good. I think we look good. I worked extra hard on this camera angle today because I'm going to be on it. So
yeah, you're for some reason your lighting's a lot better than the lighting
all of a sudden we look great. But no, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, you look great today.
I'm excited to be on the podcast. Stop it, John.
We're talking about something very important today about protecting accounts and, with all the fraud that's going on around there. And, as we were talking about it, as we were planning this podcast, you had mentioned that you had some history here.
Yeah, so I really wanted to do this podcast, not really as an expert in cybersecurity, but just as a general everyday consumer of like a lot of apps. You've probably heard of Venmo, Zelle, CashApp, and there's countless more to name from. And recently, this past New Year's, oddly enough, both my roommate and I were hacked on our Venmos. Wow. Pretty like stories that we couldn't even imagine. My roommate's was worse than mine. I'll say I got 2 Venmo transactions on New Year's for $90, and I was very surprised because I don't know who could have sent that.
Ridiculous. Okay, I don't have that kind of money.
Okay. But my roommate had a wild story, which was one day he kept getting notifications throughout his workday from TikTok saying that his Venmo had been charged $500, $1,000, $500 again. And he's very fortunate that his bank blocked those transactions, because something we learned in dealing with all of this is even if you are able to detect fraud on these apps very early, it is hell to try and get your money back, because these apps do not guarantee that in any way. They just kind of trust you to provide your own security. So that's what I'm here to try and help inform about today, is just how you can stay safe on these apps.
You're so brave.
Wow, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah, it was not a fun start to the new year, but I'm hoping if I start low, we're going up. So yeah.
So when fraud was detected, so you had identified that you had received a push notification, I'm assuming?
I'd received a push notification because one of the things I have done is enabling transaction verifications with my Venmo. So anytime I do go ahead and put in a payment, or I request a payment, or I receive one from somebody else, I always have a notification knowing who it's coming from. And what I had received here was a new sign-in notification, which I wasn't familiar with. And then later on, I didn't honestly act on it early enough, which was my own fault. But later on, I noticed that there had already been 2 charges. So the faster you act is definitely the better you act. And if I didn't have those transaction notifications enabled, I wouldn't have ever known. So
yeah, and when those transactions do occur and they're successful, the money's gone.
The money it's immediately gone. You can try to work with these apps, but you will be spending a lot of time on email with about 5 to 10 different agents. So the best thing you can do is really try to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we know there's this significant growth utilizing these apps. These apps are growing very rapidly. It's easy. It's simple to be able to transact instead of having to carry cash. Who carries cash with them anymore? If you need to pay somebody, even a friend of yours, or you're at dinner and you're splitting a check, it's very easy to be able to manage that through the apps. But someone I'm assuming, had gained access to that account. It wasn't on the receiver side, correct?
Yeah, no, definitely not on the receiver side. As you mentioned, with like the popularity of these apps growing, so has social engineering on these platforms. So every day you're going to find new ways that there are bad actors trying to go ahead and access your accounts and try to pose as you and go ahead and transfer that money to somebody else before they can even be tracked.
You've been listening to the podcast.
Actors.
I've studied it more times than I can say.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad the transactions were stopped. Unfortunately, there's so many consumers and even business users who are victims of this type of fraud every single day. And there are a number of things that you can do to safeguard the accounts.
Yeah.
Creating a strong password. We talk about password, until we're blue in the face. We can talk about passwords and creating a strong password. Did you have a strong password on the account?
I was very guilty of using one password across multiple platforms, which is something I no longer do. And another tool that I really learned was helpful when I did redo my password was the use of passphrases. And that's going ahead and thinking of either some song lyrics or a line from a movie, a joke your friend has told you, and going ahead and using that phrase to create a unique and strong password instead of a combination of birthdays that somebody can go ahead and find out, or say, like the first initial of your name, or using the typical, like, how do you say it, the 26 character suggested ones that
Yeah,
the apps
complex
give you that you'll
passwords.
never remember.
Hmm.
So passphrases, I think, are a really great way to go ahead and protect your accounts. It sounds like no duh, have a good password, but it's often more overlooked than you think, because once somebody has a good password for one place, they have a good password for every platform.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, especially if you're not using a password manager. I mean, using
Hmm.
passphrases is something that is easily you can remember that.
Oh yeah.
You don't have to write it down, and so that's why it's recommended to have a passphrase. And believe it or not, a passphrase is proper passphrase is much more difficult to crack than a standard password that is, utilizing symbols and
Oh yeah.
numbers in the password.
I think I put in my passphrase, or at least I have an example prepared for today,
So
and
what is it?
I like this song by Childish Gambino called 3005. So an example would be this line from the song "I'll Be Right by Your Side Till 3005." It's a cute little song, but that passphrase in itself has 29 characters. It's got a capitalization, 4 unique numbers, and a unique symbol. And when I put that in any kind of password manager, they'll usually give you a slight variation, but I think it was like something like 27 million years to crack. So I think going ahead and using a passphrase like that, where you have so many like unique symbols in different places and it's easy for you to remember as well, I think is probably your best move, especially if you're just not good at managing like one password across platforms.
All right, give me one moment while I accept a Venmo payment here. Hold on. What was that?
That is, let me give you my
So
social security while I'm at
yeah,
it.
so you should definitely. I mean, passphrases are good. Password
Mhm.
managers don't reuse across multiple platforms.
Yeah,
It's extremely important because that's what happens.
yeah.
One account gets compromised. That same information is used to compromise many others.
Hmm.
Who are you going to go after? You're going to go after the popular, trending applications, platforms, and
Exactly.
and there's money involved. They're
Yeah.
after the money. They're not after your personal information. So
Mhm.
make sure that you have strong passwords and protected. It's great that you had those notifications.
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming you've enabled some type of multi-factor authentication.
Yes, I do. I think that's also a great, as I said, enable transaction verifications. That's kind of the easy way for you to go ahead and like securely like make transactions. That's available for Venmo, Cash App, Zelle, pretty much any payment platform you can. Of course, it's a little annoying to always have to go ahead and do that second step verification, whether for Venmo it'd be adding the phone number of who you're sending it to, or for Cash App just
Hmm.
making sure that it's a transaction that you are verifying. But it at the end of the day, it saves you money and it saves you a lot of headaches.
Headaches! You give me headaches!
I've seen a lot, and we've seen this across the industry, not just in technology. I mean, it's impacting consumers across the board. But we talk about something that is very convenient, which is, and we see everywhere,
Mhm.
literally everywhere, whether you're going to your favorite neighborhood restaurant or
Mm,
you are in the airport, you see QR codes.
yes. Yeah.
QR codes are a big, big source of fraud because if a QR code is essentially redirecting for you to a site,
Mhm.
whether that's for payment to collect information, that QR code can be hacked, or someone can just place a QR code at that favorite restaurant or at the airport or anywhere that
Mhm.
you may go. And if you scan that code, you may be, actually transacting with bad actors.
Yeah, it's one bad link that like causes a month of like disarray for you.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many like pop-ups even this summer or this past holiday, especially at Chris Kindle Market, where people had like a QR code to go ahead and follow them
Yeah,
on
follow them.
Instagram, something like that. But you do find these everywhere. Your food trucks, concerts. I see QR codes promoting bands on like street signs while I walk to work. So being aware of like how you're going ahead and sending those funds, you are probably better off just either, if you're going to a vendor and you're going ahead to pay, if they have a QR code, either ask them, how can I pay you, through Zelle or Cash App, and go ahead and do that personally without, taking the risk of finding that like dangerous link. Because what happens is once you like get that link, it's no telling what it could do. It could hack one account, but it could also spread malware in your phone. And especially when you have apps that nowadays track data across all platforms, like you all of a sudden have a route into all of your applications. My roommate's hack was through TikTok.
Oh.
And no way has he ever made a purchase on TikTok. Never has he uploaded any credit card information to TikTok. But somehow, because he realizes he shares data across these platforms, one route opens up like a whole new avenue to all of your other apps. So be aware of the QR code. If you can trust it, if it's on some like official band poster, you're probably safe. But I'd say play it safe than sorry. Don't go scanning random things on the street, at a concert. Yep. You want a photo, take a photo, or maybe ask your friend to do it and see if they get the risk first and then go. Whatever your preference is.
Throwing the front under the bus.
Throwing the front under the bus. So, yeah.
Look, I mean, QR codes are very convenient. They're an easy way to share information.
Yeah,
they are also used for many ethical reasons, but they're also weaponized to be by bad actors to, again, malware.
Yeah.
Any type of compromise of those accounts, and it's something that you should really be wary of and know where the source is before you actually click on it, especially submit any information or accept anything that you may get prompted for.
I totally agree. It's I'm in no way security savvy or tech savvy. I think I've become more so since I've started working here about 8 months ago. But if I can learn like a few simple tricks and lessons to keep me from getting hacked, which is I think happened twice in my life, I think these are very like easy lessons for most people to go ahead to use and keep themselves safe.
Yeah. One other way that we've seen a lot of fraud occur is, so your roommate's account was hacked, and perhaps you regularly schedule payments or you make payments to your roommate.
Yes.
Whether it's for your rent or whether it's for groceries, whatever you do, make purchases. You have to also identify if there's something that you're being requested for a payment that's out of the ordinary or out of the blue. Ensure that is actually from the source, because as your roommate's account was hacked, then that entire address book would be available to that bad actor to look at the historical purchases and payments that had occurred. And now out of the blue, you receive a payment for, 2 weeks earlier, for example. Again, I don't know how the payment arrangements are, but your rent.
Right.
It comes 1 week earlier than it normally does. And if that's out of the ordinary, always use common sense. And if something doesn't seem right, then always ask and verify to make sure that it's coming from a trusted source.
Yeah, I never even went to think about that. And I Venmo my roommate for rent every month. So it's very important that it's very important to be aware that if it seems out of the ordinary, it is most likely out of the ordinary. Most things, whether it be for rent or any kind of payment, are scheduled and structured. So if you feel it's out of the ordinary, take it that way. Don't go ahead and, jump to conclusions. I remember my first day here, I did our training and I finished it, and not even an hour later, I fell for a phishing scam from Marty. And it was because I was so nervous. He was like, hey, we don't have this uploaded to this folder. Like, can you go ahead, click this link and finish it? And I noticed immediately, like hovering over the link, this looks weird. This also doesn't seem like something he'd ask of me so soon. It was probably like my second day here. And I went ahead and answered it, and it was just like, you got caught by a phishing test. We have to go and retake the training. And I guess I needed it. But never rush to a conclusion. Definitely be active when you're detecting fraud, but not so active that you're going ahead and acting rashly. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for being in the studio today. Any closing thoughts for our audience?
Again, if I can like take these steps, I think you can take these steps. I think these are good steps for anybody to go ahead to ensure their safety. And remember that like nobody, if you have Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, any of these kinds of platforms, no one representing these apps is ever going to go ahead and ask you for money or ask you to call you over the phone and be like, we need your password and email. They will go ahead and route that directly probably to the email that you registered. So be very wary of how people ask you for information and make sure that you are taking everything with good stride, because in a world of evolving technology, so there are also evolving scams. So I included a legitimate closing thought, but I also wanted to say that this was the tightest podcast we ever shot. And that's my personal happy closing thought. Does that mean I'm the best guest? I don't know. I wouldn't say that, but I don't know.
Wow. Love it, Martin. Love it. Thank you for being on this side of the camera. And for our listeners, thank you for being here. And please take the proactive, preventative steps to secure your accounts so you don't become another victim. Tune into our next podcast to learn more.